Hey guys, Bart from TST Industries here. Welcome to TST Garage. As you can see behind me, I have a beautiful GSX-S750 in the shop with me. I will be showing you how to install the Mech-GTR turn signals on the front of this bike. Now, this is a special installation. It requires some permanent modification. You will not be able to go back to these pumpkins afterwards, so make sure you consider that before you purchase these parts and try to assemble them. I will make it as easy as possible to follow using only basic tools and then also a cutting tool like a Dremel. Now that we know what's involved, let's talk about these signals a little bit. These are flush pod type signals. They are not flush mounts. They are not pod signals. They sit flush against the bodywork, but they protrude a little bit, so I call them flush pods. They have a very, very bright single LED firing through a very complex lens array that takes that single LED that is overdriven by pulse width modulation and takes that stream of light and blows it up into a really large beam. To that, we add an optional running light. On this particular bike, you don't have a running light option in the signals themselves. As you can see, Suzuki only outfits 2 wires in here. That gives us 1 circuit for signaling only. If you choose to have a running light module included in this signal set for your installation, I will show you how to wire that in so that you actually power that running light and you're good to go. Now you can buy these as just signals if you really just like the look of them, or you could couple them up with the running light module and connection kit, and you will use that part of my installation procedure to guide you. What's included in this kit is 2 signals. You have spacers specific to this vehicle. We have O-rings that increase the friction of our mounting against the bodywork. And then we have our fasteners. We chose to design these things without mechanical screw fasteners. What we do is ratchet on a spring element with our spacer and friction ring and the bodywork here in this area. This gets pressed on, sounds kind of like a zip tie, wire tie, and then we preload it with enough tension, enough force preload on these little feet. Everything stays together for you, nice and easy to remove it. Obviously, it's easier to do it in my hand here. You pry away on these little tabs away from the body here. You can use a small screwdriver. Once these things are installed, you will need a little screwdriver, but it's very, very easy. Technically, people don't really need to remove these ever, unless they crash. If you ever go to a different color of the running light, that can be done without dismounting this system. Now let's touch a little bit more on the color of the running light. We do have modules available for you to choose. This particular one is our favorite here and also our customer favorite. It's hyper white. We also have amber to match signal light. We have yellow, pink, a whole bunch of different colors for you to customize your bike. All right. Our connection on these signals is terminated in 3.5mm bullets. We will couple that up with our harness converter that will take care of our signaling circuit. And then for the optional running light system, we'll be wiring it in via our running light connection module. All right, that's enough yapping here. Let's get wrenching. Let's remove this shroud here. We're gonna use a 4mm Allen to remove these 2 fasteners from the top. Once they are out, there is one more friction interference fastener somewhere around here. That just pops out. Now we have access to 2 more screws in here. They are silver. They also take a 4mm Allen. They are the only fasteners up here, so I'm gonna crack these loose. I'm gonna hop around back behind this headlight enclosure and remove the 2 push fasteners from back here. Press in the center and comes out, and then I like to reset it back to this state so that it's ready for reinsertion. All right, now back to these 2 screws. I will show you what I'm talking about. These are shoulder screws that are silver in color. They fit through a rubber grommet. They look like this. Let's get those out. Now this headlight will pivot down. It has a hinge feature down here. We will prevent it from just falling forward and pivot it down, and then we could unseat it by pulling up on it. At this point, it'd be necessary to make some disconnections here. There is a running light connector here. If you are doing the running mate, you will be wiring your blue wire into this chocolate colored wire in this circuit. Whether you go on this side of the harness or on the headlight, it doesn't really matter. This is a little bit more practical. Now we will extract the main headlight plug, and now this chunk is good to be put to the side. Now we are presented with what's in here. You have your right signal, your left signal. Let's go ahead and disconnect both of these. I'm gonna grab an 8mm box wrench and loosen these nuts here. Once the nut is out, this just comes right out. We are going to do both because that's the quickest and simplest flow. With our stock signal off, we have this stock signal mounting geometry exposed. We're going to grab one of the spacers from the signal kit, superimpose it here. As you can see, the small diameter of the teardrop here will fit around here, but not really around its base. But this gives us just enough to align it properly, and we want to make sure that we have the same amount of distance between the bottom here and this straight, and then the same up top. I'm going to eyeball this because if I'm off by a degree, it's not too big of a deal, but you can also measure in there and mark your cut markings, and that's a pretty good approach as well. Before I start marking anything, I'm going to put tape down because I typically prefer to have black Sharpie for my cut lines. That's pretty good there. I have a Sharpie here that has a very, very fine tip. Superimpose this over this geometry like I described before, and get my outline marked. Let's see how we did. All right. This line will have to meet the back end here, and this will have to meet the back end here. I have enough to start cutting. Like I mentioned in the intro, I'm going to be using a Dremel. I have a rotating file on my Dremel. This will be able to chew right through this plastic. This is fiber-filled nylon, considerable thickness. You don't want to cut it at a very, very high RPM because you'll melt the plastic and balls will be just jumping all over the place, hot melted balls of plastic. So we're gonna go at medium RPM. Eye protection goes on. grab me a utility knife and just scrape down the edges of that cut. If you could just scrape off the excess, that usually means you got a good cut and there's not a lot of material hanging over. I still have some areas that have some thickness from those protruding parts that I was trying to cut off. So I'm gonna go over those with the Dremel one more time. Like I mentioned before, this is fiber-filled nylon. This actually files pretty nicely, so if you're uncomfortable making fine precision cuts, you can leave a lot more excess, and that way you can file away the rest. I'm gonna do a quick test fit here, see if I'm anywhere near close. Oh, look at that, boom, first try. I still don't like this protruding feature here that I left, so I'm gonna go over that one more time and then we'll move forward. All right, that's pretty much done. Let's get our spacer onto the signal. Let's get our signal in the well. All right. And let's see if we could actually fit our grommet, our O-ring on here along with our ratchet. If we can, that is the optimal solution here. But if we can't, that's fine because this doesn't move around too much. It doesn't need the extra friction. We're actually going to forego the O-ring. When you install the spring ring, make sure that the feet are going towards the signal. And boom. Pressurize it as much as it will get pressurized. And there it is, looking smooth. All right, I'm gonna grab one of the harness adapters that we sell for these signals. Like I mentioned in the intro, 2 to 2 conductors only. That's signaling circuit only. We are going to plug in the red from the signals into the black on the converters. Make sure that it's fully seated, and then we have overlap on these two insulating components. I want to make sure that one gets on top of the other. All right, black here goes to the yellow. This may be counterintuitive to some of you. Just follow the color code and you'll have success. All right, now the blue can't really do anything at this point because we need a separate connection kit. If you purchase these lights for the signaling only without the running light feature, you would tape this off, plug this in, lock down these caps with electrical tape, and then perform the other side and then reverse order of disassembly. But I will be showing how to connect the running light. First, let's test it. All right, here we go. Now this is flashing at the correct rate because I've already changed the OEM signal relay to our TST Industries flasher relay for LEDs. If this is hyper flashing on you guys, you will have to consider possibly changing the OEM relay. We do have a separate video showing you the installation of that part, so please check out our YouTube channel or our website, tstindustries.com. I just seated the signal connector back in its cradle here. It just snaps in. Now we have all this access. We will manage that in just a moment. If you got yourself the running lights, now's the time to fit them in. They arrive to you like this. You will need to bend this wire back through the slot and pass it through the center. The other wire, let me grab the other side signal. Better to demonstrate like this. We will have to pass this around this wire also, like so, and then snap this in. The modularity here is derived from my childhood Lego mania. Everything is snapped together and you could change things around to your liked configuration. Plug it in here. Now this is good to go. Since I already mounted this, I will have to do it on the bike, but it is vastly easier to do it with the signal off the bike. All right, plug this in here. We have all these connections made, and we need to figure out where to get switched and fused positive 12. Well, lucky for us, here we have such a connector for the running lights on the headlight assembly. And we'll need to peel back on this a little bit. We just need a little bit of more access in here to put our posi tap in here. All right, our running light connection kit comes with a long blue wire along with 2 posi tap connectors. This is a universal connection kit. For this installation, we will only be using one of these posi taps, so you could save the other. We also have a lot of wire. We don't need all that wire, so we're going to end up chopping off a little bit of it. Let's plug in our blue wire into blue wire from the signal set into this. Again, we have these insulating caps. At this point, I have everything plugged in. So I will be locking down on my insulator caps. First, I inspect them to make sure all the conductors are covered, and then I wind a nice tight electrical tape winding around this whole bundle, and that will keep my caps safe from sliding around and causing a short circuit, having to replace fuses and then redo all this wiring. All right, nice tight package. I'm gonna go, let's see, I'm gonna take about 8 inches of wire, snip this off. Gonna use a wire stripper. Expose a little bit of this wire. For now, we're just gonna do about 1/4 inch. I'm gonna massage this into its final form later. Here I have the posi tap connector. I'm unscrewing the larger diameter barrel. This barrel does have a slit through it. The slit fits around the wire that we're trying to connect into. This connector goes in this configuration, so we don't want to bulk up on this side. We want to be on top. With the keying element here, I'm going to slide that slit from the bottom to the top, like so, on the chocolate colored wire. Then I'm going to spin this back on. If you notice here, there is a little tiny piercing element that punctures through the insulation of the wire to make our connection. So I'm going to spin this on until I have bottomed out and it's tight. You don't actually close this gap all the way. Once it's tight, you leave it alone. I'm going to take off the smaller cap, and this, I'm going to just make a temporary connection. Spin this back on once this wire is through, give it a test, and here we go. We have running light functionality. this point, I just need to perform all these steps on this side of the bike. I'm gonna do this without commentary because they're the same exact steps, just transposed to the right side. So let me do that and then we'll finalize this installation. Now with my running light wire already connected and in place, I'm just gonna make sure that I have a long enough run to make it to this connector. Again, about 8 or so inches will do it. Strip off a piece. I'm gonna go a little bit longer this time, about 3/8 of an inch. I'm gonna undo my other one that I connected previously. Restrip it to about the same length, and then I'm going to twist these guys together. I'm going to grab the cap that they're supposed to go through, get that wire inserted in here, make sure that I have enough hanging out. I have about 3 millimeters, which is the ideal amount. I'll connect these back into here. For this particular connection, I maintain pressure towards the connector as I screw in, and I give it a little tug test. Now it looks good. We do have a tiny bit of conductor protruding from here that could potentially cause an issue. Let's test this. Okay, we have running light, we have running light, we have signal light, we have signal light. We are good electrically. Let's throw a little bit of electrical tape just up top here. I don't want to ask for trouble. Also like strain relief, like so. That's looking pretty good. Make sure that I still have the light. Good to go. Now let's distribute some of the bulk here. I already snapped in the signal connectors into their receiving geometry. Now we need to make sure that we don't have wire bulk in here preventing the headlight from being able to be assembled. Nice engineers over at Suzuki gave us a lot of cool little tucks in the wire harness in here that we could go through and just stow our wires after we S-fold them, kind of like this. You can also use wire ties and get the bulk clipped onto something else. Make sure none of these things get braided together. All right, this side's looking pretty neat. Still have enough length to reach my running light on the assembly. Now all of this will be held captive by the headlight after we reinstall it, so shouldn't be any worries there. It's looking pretty good. Let's grab the headlight. First, I'm going to reconnect the connectors. And then going to engage these hinge posts into their receiving geometry here. Making sure that none of the wires are in the way of closing this light assembly. All right, be careful passing this corner. Around this light, it will interfere, so you have to sort of put pressure down as it passes, and then you're clear. And look at this result. They look like they were designed specifically for this bike. All right, guys, that's pretty much it. Let's fire this thing up, give it a final test. We have running light, we have signal light. Both sides are operating properly, good to go. Check out this massive styling update. We went from ashy to classy. We have a hyper white running light. You could change that at any given point by just changing out that little module I showed you. Hopefully, you guys will like this enough to be okay with making the modification. If not, we do have a whole host of other signal lamps that are just bolt-on, no fuss, no modification. So check out tstindustries.com. You'll be able to find those parts there. We have other parts for this bike and other bikes you may have in your stable. Thanks for watching. Hit like, subscribe, give me a comment. I like hearing from you guys. Ride safe, peace.